Hi everyone, my name's Danny and I'm an educator with a local nonprofit called the Raptor Institute. Now when you hear the word raptor, you might think of the dinosaur, maybe the truck, maybe even the basketball team. But when I say the word raptor, I'm talking about our modern day raptors, and those are going to be things that you think of when you hear the term bird of prey. So those are going to be things like hawks, falcons, eagles, owls, even vultures are considered raptors. Now what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be meeting several different raptors that live here in San Diego, learning a little bit about them, what makes them a raptor, and why they're so important to have here in our communities. Now the birds that you're going to meet are birds that we work with at our organization that have come to us from the wild. So these are wild animals, and they're with us at the Raptor Institute because they were injured in the wild. So all the birds you're going to meet today have some kind of a handicap or permanent disability that prevents them from being able to survive back in the wild on their own. And that's why they're what we call our educational ambassadors. That's why they live in captivity and they're able to come out and do presentations like this and teach the public all about how amazing their species are and why they're so important to have here in San Diego. So if you guys are ready to get started, I'm going to go ahead and bring out our first guest and we'll start learning all about these amazing raptors. All right, everyone, so this is our last raptor guest. Now, as you're guessing, this is another owl. This is a smaller owl than that great horned owl that we just met. Now, a lot of people see this bird and they think, oh, cute, a baby owl. Well, it might look like it because he's so small, but remember, like we learned at the beginning, raptors, owls included, come in different shapes and sizes. So this isn't a baby owl. He's a western screech owl. He's a full-grown adult, and he's found right here in San Diego. And believe it or not, he's not even the smallest owl that we have in San Diego County. This western screech owl is only our third smallest owl. So there's two other owl species that are even a little bit smaller than he is. Now, as a small owl like this, western screech owls aren't going to be quite as common as our great horned owl. The reason for that, when you're this small, there are a lot of larger things that might want to turn you into a meal, great horned owls included. So he needs a way to keep himself safe, and the way he's going to do that is by using his camouflage. So guys, take a look at this western screech owl's feathers and think, what do those feathers look like? Now, I'm lucky to be here at Daly Ranch, where we've got tons of wonderful oak trees and sycamore trees, our real common trees that we find throughout San Diego County. And this western screech owl has feathers that are designed to camouflage just like the bark of a tree. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to show you how amazing this western screech owl is at hiding amongst the trees. So if we take him and we go ahead and hold him right up here next to this oak tree, take a look at that little western screech owl and tell me if you can see him anymore. He almost disappears amongst the bark of that tree. Now the reason for that is because when you're this small, you need a way to stay safe from larger predators, and the way he does that is by hiding. He uses his camouflage to make sure that he isn't found by larger owls that might want to try and eat him during the nighttime. All right, so let me go ahead and bring him down. And because, guys, he uses that camouflage to help him hide amongst the trees, what kind of a habitat do you think we generally find a western screech owl in? What type of habitat would he live in if he requires those trees to help him camouflage and stay safe from other predators? While you guys think about that, I'm going to move back up so we can talk a little bit more about him. All right, so if you're thinking that a western screech owl probably lives in a forest, you're absolutely right. These guys are going to be found here in San Diego, but they're not all over the county like the great horned owl. They're found more in our mountains and in our more oak forest and riparian habitats, kind of like we have here at Daly Ranch. So you might not find a western screech owl down by the beaches. You're probably not going to find one in your backyards or neighborhoods unless you live in a slightly more rural area of San Diego. But you can find them by coming out to those places, to coming visit Daly Ranch, heading up to the mountains in the summer. That's where you can find a western screech owl. Now, if you guys remember with the great horned owl, we talked about how amazing an owl's eyesight is, and that they can see really, really well at night to help them find their prey. But believe it or not, owls have a second sense that is also very, very amazing and helps them to find their prey when they can't use their eyesight. You want to take a guess at what that sense might be? It's going to be their sense of hearing. You're absolutely right. So owls, believe it or not, when they hear a sound, they can locate exactly where that sound is coming from just by using their ears. So the way an owl is able to use their ears to locate exactly where a sound is coming from is by the location of their ears. Now you and I, we both have two ears, and we both have an ear on the right side of our head and an ear on the left side of their head. So if you were to close your eyes right now and listen for a sound, maybe a car on the street outside your house, maybe the laundry machine doing laundry in the garage, close your eyes, listen for that sound. I bet that with your eyes closed, you'd be able to locate what direction that sound was coming from, whether it was coming from your right or from your left. And the way you're able to do that is by determining which ear that sound came to first. So if the sound was on your right, it's going to travel through the air and it's going to come to your right ear before it comes to your left ear. Your brain's going to tell you that sound was coming from your right. So we do a pretty good job at telling which direction a sound's coming from, left or right. But we have a tough time of telling how far away a sound is, or whether that sound might be above us or below us. And that's because our ears are the same size and they're located on the same level straight across the middle of our face. Now an owl, like this western screech owl, also has two ears. And just like you and I, there's one on the right and there's one on the left. But unlike you and I, whose ears are right across the middle, owls have one ear that's slightly higher and one ear that's slightly lower. And that allows them to tell not only if a sound's coming from the right or the left, but also if it's coming from above or below. And using those two locations, he can pinpoint exactly what direction a sound's coming from. Now he just has to figure out how far away that sound is. That's the third dimension that he needs. And he's going to do that because he has ears that are different sizes. One ear is slightly larger and the other ear is slightly smaller. And that gives him a difference in intensity of how loud that sound is. And his brain can calculate with those three directions, left to right, up and down, and distance, exactly where a sound came from. Now that's a pretty amazing skill to have, because that means an owl is able to find his prey if it's making noise without even needing to see it. Take this western screech owl, for example. He lives in our forested areas where there are a lot of trees, and he hunts small animals that are generally living on the ground. Rodents like small mice and a lot of small insects. One of his favorite insects to eat is a cricket. You guys all know what a cricket looks like, right? Everyone's seen a cricket before? Well, think about going up to the forest at night without a flashlight and walking around and trying to find a cricket with your eyes. That'd be really tough to do. They're quite small, they're pretty well camouflaged, they'd be tough to find. But everyone knows what a cricket sounds like. You've all heard a cricket before, right? And I bet if you went up to the forest at night, or even in your backyard tonight, and listened, you would hear crickets. But because our ears don't work as well as an owl's, it'd still be hard for you to find that cricket. This western screech owl, however, he could be sitting in a tree up in the forest, up in our mountains. He could hear a cricket chirping, and he could pinpoint exactly where that cricket was hiding. Even if he was under some leaves on the forest floor, that western screech owl would still know exactly where that cricket was. He could fly down and grab onto that cricket just by listening to the sounds he was making without having to use his eyes to see that cricket. So pretty awesome skill, and it gives owls the ability to hunt and find their food in situations where they might not be able to see it. Some of our owls that live in the northern parts of our continent, up in the northern US and even Canada and Alaska, they have to hunt in the winter when there's a lot of snow on the ground. And a lot of the animals they hunt live on the ground underneath that snow. Well, guess what? Owls have great eyesight, but they can't see through snow. So those owls use that hearing to listen for the sounds those small animals make as they're running around under the snow, and then fly down and reach through the snow to grab those animals on the ground that they've never seen before. Pretty awesome tool that owls can use to really help them be amazing and successful nocturnal predators. Now guys, you might notice our western screech owl. It's kind of hard to see his face because he spends a lot of his time looking at me. I'm kind of the closest person to him, and that can be a little scary for a wild animal like this. But if you do have a chance to see his eyes, you'll notice that he's got a bad eye, just like our great owl. For him, it's going to be his left eye, the one closest to you. And that's why he lives with us, because with only one good eye, it'd be really hard for him to see successfully enough to catch his own food. Even though he's got his hearing, he still needs both those eyes to help him navigate through the forest, to land on tree branches and move about without crashing into stuff. And that wouldn't be possible with just one eye, which is why he stays with us. Now guys, there's a question that we get quite a bit when we bring out our owls and do these presentations, and that is, Mr. Danny, can an owl turn its head all the way around? Now first I've got to ask you, what do you mean when you say all the way around? Do you mean a complete circle, or do you mean facing backwards? So I'm going to break it down for you. Owls can turn their neck and their head a lot further than we can, and that's because he has twice as many bones in his neck as you and I do. Now we're mammals. Just like other mammals, we have 7 neck bones, 7 cervical vertebrae. That's the same for a giraffe. That's the same for a mouse. All mammals have that number of bones except for a few rare exceptions. Now with raptors, owls, hawks, falcons, they actually have 14 neck bones or neck vertebrae. And that makes their head and neck a lot more flexible than ours. So if I want to turn my head as far as it goes, I can get to about my shoulder, about 90 degrees. But if an owl like our western screech owl wants to turn their head, he can turn it almost 3/4 of the way, almost 270 degrees in both directions. He can take his head and he can turn it sideways so that his chin almost faces completely up. Now he's going to use that ability to be able to look and listen for his prey without having to move his body. If every time he heard a noise behind him and he wanted to turn around to focus on it, but he had to get up and move his body to face the other way, he'd be burning energy. And the less energy he burns, the less he has to eat, the easier it's going to be for him to survive. So having the ability to just move his head to focus on sounds and sights allows him to save energy, makes him much more efficient. Now, one last thing you'll notice if you look at his face, you can kind of see that he has some special feathers that kind of make a ring around his face. Almost looks like he has a big circle on his face. And some owls have a much more defined circle. We call those circles a facial disc. They're special feathers that help pick up sounds. They're acoustic feathers that focus the sounds that he hears in the environment into his ears. Kind of like if you have satellite TV or satellite internet, up on top of your house there's a big round dish. And you don't just stick that up on your house and hope for the best signal you're going to get. You angle that dish up, down, left, and right to really focus in on that signal to get the best signal possible. And he does the same thing with those feathers. He turns his head to focus that radar dish on the sound he's hearing, and he can actually adjust those feathers a little bit backwards and forwards to really focus on the tiniest of sounds. The sound of a mouse rustling in the brush from 100 yards away. Kind of like if you're out with your friends or you're out playing on the street and mom and dad's yelling at you to come home, but you can't really hear, is that your mom or is that just someone yelling down the street? You might do this. You might put your hand behind your ear, and that's going to do the same thing. It's going to focus the sound a little bit. It's going to allow you to hear just a little bit better. And owls have that ability every day, and they use that ability to really pick up on those small sounds and use those small sounds to hunt and find their prey. All right? So guys, that's it for our western screech owl, and that's it for all the raptors I brought to share with you today. I'm really glad you guys had a chance to meet these birds, and I want to remind you a few things before we wrap up and finish. First is, every single one of these birds that you met today lives right here in San Diego County. You can find them in and around your backyards. You can come up here to the Daly Ranch and go on a hike, go on a walk, and see every single one of the birds that you saw here today. So I want you guys, if you enjoyed meeting these birds, if you think that they're pretty neat, pretty awesome little animals, maybe spend some time outside. Maybe learn a little bit more about these birds, read some books about raptors, watch some cool videos online about raptors hunting and doing the amazing things that they're good at, and then spend some time outside looking for them. It could be sitting in your backyard, it could be coming on a trip with your friends or family up to Daly Ranch or to another park in San Diego so you can observe these birds in the wild. Because guys, the more you learn about these birds, the more you're going to understand how important they are to our environment. These guys are predators. They're at the very top of their food chain, and all the other animals that live in our communities rely on these predators to keep their populations healthy and under control. Okay, like we talked about with the great horned owl, if we didn't have owls and other raptors eating mice and rats and skunks and rabbits, those animal populations would grow too large for our community and our environment to sustain. It would upset that wonderful balance that we have in nature, and would make things look a lot different here in our beautiful backyards. So appreciate these raptors. Go out, look for them, see them, find them, and remember that everything you guys do, not just when you're out at the park, but in your backyard at your school, have an impact on our local wildlife. Simple things like taking your candy bar wrapper and throwing it in the trash can, or picking up a piece of trash that might not be yours and throwing it away. Those things are very simple, and they're really going to vastly help our environment. Okay, they're going to protect the birds that we have here, and those birds are going to protect the populations of all the other animals that are in that food web, that ecosystem that they share here in San Diego. All right, so guys, thanks again for listening. I hope you learned some amazing things about these raptors. Hope you get to see some of these on your own out in the wild, and hopefully you'll learn that if this is something you really enjoy, you might decide to pursue a career in science, become a biologist or an ecologist, go to college, get a degree in one of those fields, and you could have a career studying, learning about, and working with amazing animals just like this. All right, so thanks so much, guys. It's been great talking with you. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and have a good one.